Good morning. I'm Melissa Almodovar. I'm the Procurement Director for the Community Development Block Grant for Disaster Recovery and Program and the Community Development Block Grant Mitigation Program. In this pre-proposal meeting, we are going to discuss the request for proposals for services of design, construction, operations, and maintenance services for the Centro Médico Microgrid. I would like to introduce the Puerto Rico Department of Housing personnel. Along with us here, we have Joel Ocasio, the Deputy Director of the Procurement Division, Winnet Cortez, Procurement Manager, David Cordero, Procurement Official, Camille Garcia, Procurement Specialist. From the Renewable Energy Division, we have Juan Carlos Perez Bofil, Director of Disaster Recovery, Fernando Toledo, Deputy Director of Disaster Recovery, and Tamari Alvarez from the Grant Manager. We also have with us Maria del Carmen Figueroa, Director of Federal Compliance and Subrecipient Management. Any questions submitted during this meeting will be answered in writing and published in an addendum. Any information provided in this meeting will not change the terms and conditions established in the RFP instructions. This meeting is being recorded and will be available in our CDBG-DR YouTube channel. The link for this meeting will be also published in the addendum with the answers to the questions submitted in this meeting and via email in a later time. All procurement processes shall be conducted in accordance with the terms and conditions established in the procurement manual for the CDBG-DR program to guarantee full and open competition and fair treatment of all persons or entities involved in each procurement process. This procurement manual is available at our CDBG-DR webpage and is made an integral part of this RFP. Now, we're going to have a presentation from the Renewable Energy Division with an explanation of the scope of services for the design, construction, operations, and maintenance services for the Centro Médico Microgrid. Now I leave you with Fernando Toledo and Juan Carlos Perez Bofil.
Good morning, all of you. I'm gonna have a presentation here for you guys for the design, construction, operations, and maintenance services for the Centro Médico Microgrid. It's gonna be the RFP. As part of the agenda, we're gonna discuss an overview, project description, site visit, project organizational chart, project team and staffing requirements, design and construction task, operations and maintenance task, price proposal requirements, and evaluation criteria. An overview, the Puerto Rico Department of Housing is issuing this request for proposal to procure a design, construction, operations, and maintenance firm that will design, build, operate, and maintain the Centro Médico Microgrid project on behalf of and in collaboration with the Puerto Rico Department of Housing and Administration de Servicios Médicos de Puerto Rico, ASEM. The project's period of performance and contract terms lengths are included below. Design, permitting, construction, and operational startup. The project shall have a commercial operation date, COD, that is no later than 1,095 days or 36 months from the dates that the contract for capital expenditure related to microgrid assets, design and construction is executed with PRDOH. Operations and maintenance, the project shall be operated and maintained under the contract for operating expenses related to microgrid assets, operation and maintenance with ASEM for a period not shorter than 10 years from the COD, with the option to extend the contract for an additional 10 to 15 years. Project description, Centro Médico Microgrid projects. Centro Médico is a hospital complex that serves as the main center for trauma cases for Puerto Rico and the Caribbean and provides additional critical medical care and research services. A microgrid project is essential for improving the reliability and resilience of the hospital complex electrical system operation to ensure that the critical service the complex provides can continue under any circumstance. The primary goal of the Centro Médico Microgrid is to supply the Centro Médico Hospital Complex with the cost-effective and affordable, reliable, and resilient energy solutions in the form of optimally sized and network area microgrids that will serve as the primary electrical power source for the facilities in the project boundary. The secondary goal is to maximize renewable energy production to sustainably meet the maximum amount of facility energy needs on a yearly basis while remaining cost-effective related to conventional alternatives. Project description: the Centro Médico Microgrid consists of approximately 50 facilities with the project boundaries with a peak electrical loads of 23,391 kVA. Potential locations for new generations and energy fuel stations are provided in attachment 5, supplemental information A. Proposers who return and executed Exhibit J non-disclosure agreement will be provided additional project site information to consider during the development of the proposed solution. Site visit: there will be a pre-proposal site visit held on March 10, 2023 at 9:30 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time. The meeting point will be in the Centro Médico Central Plaza. Anyone interested in attending the site visit must register via email at cdbg-DR-procurement@vivienda.pr.gov, no later than March 9, 2023. The purpose of the site visits is for potential proposers to become familiar with the project site and existing electrical system infrastructure. The visit will be led by Puerto Rico Department of Housing and the SAM facility management team, and will include a walkthrough of the areas available for development and the substation. Puerto Rico Department of Housing kindly requests that all questions or requests for clarification regarding the RFP and project scope be submitted in writing to PR2H on or before March 23, 2023. PR Department of Housing and ASEAN will not respond to questions during the site visits. Project organizational chart: we had the Centro Médico Microgrid as a contracting entity. We have the Puerto Rico Department of Housing and ASEAN. A supporting entity for the Puerto Rico Department of Housing, we have ASEAN and the ER2 program manager. And for ASEAN, we had the Puerto Rico Department of Housing for the request for proposal process. Design and construction and operation maintenance, and the project developer. Project team and staffing requirements: proposer must demonstrate that they have the personnel capable of handling the services required to complete the project. Proposers may be comprised of one or more firms, and Puerto Rico Department of Housing encourage proposers to engage local subcontractors, professional and relevant service providers headquartered in Puerto Rico, local parties, as team members and key staff to the greatest extent possible. Proposals shall identify each team member, subcontractor, subject matter expert, specialized service provider, etc., and specify their role, and proposers must clearly identify the specific key staff for the projects and provide the following for each: name, education, including years of graduation, year of experience, licenses and or certifications, and resume or professional information, including start and end dates for each job position and project listed. Proposer must provide a chart depicting the staffing capacity available and the level of commitment that key staff will devote to the project. Proposers must also provide an assessment of the availability of additional professional staff and other resources identified as required to complete the project. This includes the availability of backup consultants in case of illness, turnover, and other loss of personnel. Design and construction tasks. Detailed tasks related to the design and construction can be found in attachment 1.8 scope of work, design and construction. Task 00, project management and administration, operational support, project management, document control and management, accounting and reporting, stakeholder engagement, and outreach support. Under task 01, design and services during construction, we have project planning, preliminary design, construction drawings, and specification service during the construction phase. Under task 02, environmental review, we have environmental review record, agency consultations, environmental reevaluations. Under task 03, permitting, we have permit identification and acquisition, regulatory agency coordination, request for information. Under task 04, construction, we have procurement, abatement, demolition and construction, third-party inspection services, interconnection, commissioning, and miscellaneous construction activities. Task 05, administrative closeout. There is the project closeout. Operations and maintenance tasks. Detailed tasks related to the design and construction can be found in attachment 1.b, scope of work, operation and maintenance. Microgrid system operation and maintenance, asset management and maintenance, regulatory compliance, information management, emergency management and action, environmental health, safety and security, testing, reporting and record management, customer service and performance measurement. Price proposal requirements. Puerto Rico Department of Housing is required that proposers complete 2 cost of forms with regard to the price proposal for this project. Number 1, cost for the design and construction of the proposed solution, capital expenditures, and number 2, cost for the long-term operations and maintenance of the proposed solution, operational expenditures. Puerto Rico Department of Housing is also requiring that proposers provide the levelized cost of energy storage for the proposed solutions. LCOE will be used by Puerto Rico Department of Housing to compare the combination of capital expenditures, operations and maintenance, system performance, and fuel costs across the submitted proposals. Proposers will be compensated by Puerto Rico Department of Housing via ER2 program funds for the design and construction costs. The operations and maintenance costs will be used as a pricing basis for the operations and maintenance contract that the selected proposer will execute with a SEM. Design and construction capital expenses. Proposers must submit the design and cost form and the Excel-based detailed cost breakdown that details at a minimum the capital cost, microgrid equipment such as panel, inverters, battery, controller, wiring, etc. Development costs as a permit, environmental review, engineering and design, project site analysis and preparation, etc. Construction and construction closeout costs, commissioning and acceptance testing, third-party inspection, decommissioning, etc. And the general and administrative costs, legal, finances, margin, contingency, insurance, taxes, etc. Operations and maintenance operating expenses. Proposers must submit an operation and maintenance cost form and Excel-based detailed cost breakdown that details how each of the O&M cost categories were calculated. Proposals must include an itemized annual cost of fuel that accounts for annual market price variability. A levelized cost of energy and storage. Proposers must submit the LCOE for the proposed generation technologies and the LCOS for the proposed battery energy storage system. Resources of the proposed solution and include assumptions for the proposed system used in the calculations. Proposer must clearly define how they calculate LCOE and LCOS. Evaluation criteria. Compliance with proposed submissions requirements, pass-fail, technical proposal, proposer capacity and financial stability, pass-fail, work approach is critical, technical microgrid solution is critical, proposer qualification and experience critical, project team key staff qualification and experience are critical, project team key staff capacity and time allocation important, and section 3 business concern and MBE, WBE preference. Price proposal and overall cost reasonableness. For any question, please submit in writing per RFP instructions. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando, for the explanation. Hi, my name is Winnet Cortez Inigaglia, and I will be talking about the document acquisition and important dates for this RFP. The RFP documents are available for download at the CDBG-DR website as presented on screen. Important dates for this RFP are the following. Registration for the pre-proposal site visit via email, March 9, 2023. Pre-proposal site visit, March 10, 2023. Time 9:30 at Centro Médico. Submission of questions and requests for clarification or on before March 23, 2023 at 4 p.m. Responses to questions and requests for clarification, April 12th. Proposal due date. Remember, only electronic submission. From May 24, 2023 at 9 a.m. up to on or before May 26, 2023 at 4 p.m. Submission of inquiries and addenda. Responses to all proposal questions will be answered by addenda and will be posted on the CDBG-DR website. This must be submitted using attachment 3 on or before March 23. All documents related to this acquisition process, including the addendas issued by the Puerto Rico Department of Housing, are and will be available for download at your website. All proposers are responsible to monitor the CDBG-DR website for any issue addenda in this RFP. Now, Camille Garcia will talk about important aspect for procurement process.
Thank you, Winnet. Proposals are to be submitted on the proposals due date stated in section 4.3 of the RFP. Responses to RFP submitted after the prescribed deadline will not be allowed. Submission of the responses to the RFP will only be accepted by electronic means. Proposers are advised that the PRDOH will neither require nor accept physical proposals submissions. If proposals are submitted in both electronic and paper formats, the PRDOH will only consider the electronic format for the evaluation. The proposers will receive access to submit the electronic proposals after registration process is completed throughout the CDBG-DR website. At scheduled due date for electronic proposal submissions, a link button will be enabled to provide access to the registration form. Proposers should complete all the required fields in the format. Proposals must be submitted within the closing date and time for the proposals as established in section 4.3 of this RFP. Access to upload the electronic proposal will commence 3 business days before the scheduled due date and time. Regarding the non-disclosure agreement, as mentioned before, the potential proposers are required to complete Exhibit J, the non-disclosure agreement, and provide a letter of intent stating their intention to participate in this request for proposal, providing their legal and organizational structure and profile prior to submit their proposals. Proposers will only submit Exhibit J and the letter of intent to our email, cdbg-DR-procurement@vivienda.pr.gov prior to submit proposals. After the receipt and the evaluation of the Exhibit J and the letter of intent, PRDOH will send attachment 6, supplemental information B. This attachment 6 provides the information to support proposals preparation for the project. This information is only being provided to all potential proposers who signed and returned the non-disclosure agreement, Exhibit J, and their letter of intent. Nonetheless, proposers are responsible for gathering all data as required to prepare a final design for the project's implementation.
Good morning, I am David Cordero and I'll be explaining the evaluation criteria. The evaluation committee will evaluate responsive proposals according to the following criteria listed in order of importance. Financial stability of the proposer and its capacity to effectively perform the services. Quality of the proposed approach and its relevance to the services described in this RFP, including implementation schedule and understanding of PRDOH goals. Technical, financial, and operational viability of the proposed microgrid solution. Professional qualifications and experience of the proposer to successfully perform the services required in this RFP, as evidenced by the successful implementation of relevant services of similar scope and complexity, preferably in large, complex public organizations like state government and municipalities. Professional qualification and specialized experience of the proposed key staff, as evidenced by relevant experience to the role proposed. Capacity of the key personnel and the ability to commit adequate time to effectively perform the services in the role assigned within the required time frame. Level, quality, and relevancy of participation by Section 3 business concern and MBE, WBE registered Puerto Rico business. Price proposal, reasonableness of overall price, allocation of effort, and overall value offered. The proposers and first-tier subcontractors must be registered in the System for Award Management, also known as SAM, at the time of the proposal submission, or initiate the registration process right after the proposal submission. For more information, please visit the SAM website as presented in the slide. There is no fee to create, renew, or update your registration. Awards will only be issued to entities that are cleared and not ineligible for award of a contract due to suspension, debarment, and had imposed limited denial of participation. Now we will leave you with Maria del Carmen Figueroa, Director of Federal Compliance and Subrecipient Management, to explain the Section 3 business concern and or MWBE business concern.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the space to present compliance and labor standards requirements. This presentation is prepared in English. However, should anyone need this presentation in Spanish, you can request using the protocols for this procurement to submit the request. I am representing the Department of Housing Federal Compliance team, led by Maria del Carmen Figueroa.
Today we will discuss, as part of our agenda, an overview of compliance roles and responsibilities. We will also cover some tools that are available online. We will also talk about documenting efforts, taking advantage of training that's made available, and reporting requirements, as well as frequently asked questions.
In this presentation, we will be discussing Section 3 training, hiring, and contracting opportunities, minority and women-owned business participation, fair housing and equal opportunity, and Davis-Bacon and the related acts.
Contractors or subrecipients using CDBG-DR or CDBG-MIC funding have certain roles and responsibilities. These include assigning staff who will attend the day-to-day implementation of federal compliance requirements, attending trainings and workshops, using tools and templates, executing the activities, and completing documentation that's required. You can also participate in Department of Housing sponsored technical assistance sessions. You must complete quarterly reporting and comply with the reporting requirements. The procurement package contains language that offers contractors the ability to seek bonus points. Please remember to use the references and the templates that are made available and that we will be discussing in this presentation. Proposers seeking Section 3 bonus points should provide their self-certifications and sufficient evidence for how they qualify as a Section 3 business. The Department of Housing offers a template on their website. Proposers who are seeking MBE or WBE bonus points should provide a copy of their MWBE certification to provide evidence of this status. The certificates provided should show the dates and indicate that they are currently active. The procurement package contains sections that speak to the applicability and the requirements for MWBE. Within those sections, You will find helpful links to online resources that are made available, such as the policy guide.
Procurement packages also contain language for Section 3 under 24 CFR 75. This language speaks to the applicability and compliance with Section 3. Within the section, you will find helpful links to online resources that are made available, such as the policy guide and self-certification templates.
Let's talk about Section 3. Section 3 is a federal requirement from the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968. This requirement states that we should provide, to the greatest extent feasible, job training, employment, contracting, and other economic opportunities generated by this HUD financial assistance to be directed to low and very low-income persons and businesses. The Department of Housing makes available a Section 3 policy guide on their website, both in English and in Spanish. Contractors must read and implement activities as applicable and necessary. They also are responsible for their subcontractors assuring that benchmarks are met. For Section 3 projects, 24 CFR 75 has established the following benchmarks. 25% of the total labor hours for a project should be work hours of Section 3 workers. And from that 25%, 5% of the total labor hours should be work hours of targeted Section 3 workers. Let's talk about the definition of a Section 3 business. A Section 3 business refers to a business concern meeting at least one of the following criteria, which is documented within the last 6 months. The business is at least 51% owned and controlled by low or very low-income persons. It could also be a business that has at least 51% ownership and controlled by a public housing resident or residents who currently live in Section 8 assisted housing. It could also be a business that has over 75% of the labor hours performed for that business over the prior 3-month period by Section 3 workers. In this slide, we're going to look at the definition of a Section 3 worker. A Section 3 worker can be any worker who fits or, when hired within the last 5 years, fit at least one of the following categories. The worker's income for the previous or annualized calendar year is below the income limit established by HUD. It could also be a worker who is employed by a Section 3 business concern. Or the worker is a youth build participant. Now let's talk about what a targeted Section 3 worker is. A Section 3 targeted worker for community development financial assistance projects is a person who is employed by a Section 3 business. It could also be a person who currently fits or, when hired, fit at least one of the following categories as documented within the past 5 years. Someone living within the service area or the neighborhood of the project as defined in 24 CFR 75.5, or a youth build participant. The neighborhood or service area for a targeted Section 3 worker is that in which you can find at least 5,000 persons within a 1-mile radius of the project. If there are less than 5,000 persons within that 1-mile radius, you can expand that radius until you have 5,000 persons around the Section 3 covered project site. Each year, HUD releases new income limits. These income limits typically come out around April. The latest income limits for 2022 are made available on the slide. The Department of Housing has created various forms for helping maintain compliance. There is a Section 3 plan that can be used by contractors or subrecipients. There are also Section 3 self-certification forms. And finally, there is a form to help you document your efforts. Let's take a closer look at your Section 3 plan. This document helps you identify new hiring needs, subcontracting needs. It helps you plan your outreach efforts and assists your coordinators in identifying the day-to-day activities. It helps you define compliant procedures, and it helps you understand your reporting requirements. You can use the link on the slide to visit the website and download a Section 3 plan template. In this slide, we want to focus on the Section 3 self-certification forms. These useful tools help you uncover if workers or subcontracting businesses meet the income thresholds required. HUD offers also a business registry. This registry allows you to register yourself as a Section 3 business. The registry also has a tool that helps serve folks looking for Section 3 business databases. We will now turn our attention to minority and women-owned business compliance. There are various regulations that call for the inclusion of minorities and women business enterprises. 2 CFR 200.321, as well as Executive Orders 11625, 12138, and 12432 establish the participation of MWBE firms, which seek to ensure that when possible, contracts and other economic opportunities funded in whole or in part with federal housing and community development assistance are directed to minority business enterprises and women business enterprises. The Department of Housing has established an MWBE policy guide. This is available on the website in both English and Spanish. You can access those documents using the link on the slide. Let's look at what a minority business enterprise is. An MBE is defined as a business which is at least 51% owned, operated, and controlled on a daily basis by one or more American citizens of the following ethnic minority and/or gender and/or military veteran classifications: African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Native American, Hasidic Jew, persons with disabilities, and other individuals who can prove social and economic disadvantage. Women business enterprises, or WBEs, are businesses that are at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more women. The owners must be U.S. citizens or legal resident aliens whose business formation and principal place of business are here in the U.S. or its territories, and whose management and daily operation is controlled by women. The MWBE policy guide will identify that there are goals which apply to professional services, purchasing supplies, and construction contracting. There is a total of 20% minimum participation goal. This 20% is comprised of 10% for women-owned businesses and 10% for minority-owned businesses. Contractors are expected to perform good faith efforts for contracting, subcontracting, and purchasing opportunities of $10,000 or more during the life of the contract. The Department of Housing has also created various forms for helping maintain compliance with MWBE. One of those is the MWBE Utilization Plan. This document template allows contractors or subrecipients to identify how they plan on being in compliance with these contracting goals. There is also a waiver form. This document allows contractors or subrecipients to identify if they meet the requirements to waive their goals for MWBE. Let's look at the MWBE Utilization Plan. This tool helps you compile data for your subcontracting. It helps you identify what needs you may have. It helps hold discussions on creating supplier and contractor listings, and it provides awareness of meeting the goal for the contract and tracking. You can use the link on the slide to go to the website and download the plan template. Let's review how you should complete your MWBE utilization plan. The Department of Housing Utilization Plan template can be used throughout the life cycle of your contract. Completing the plan is pretty easy. You should read the general instructions in row 3 and complete sections A, B, and F from the document. Complete the information requested in the yellow cells. When we talk about certified minority or women-owned businesses, we are referring to those who have filed applications with federal entities such as SBA and others that you see here on the slide. Businesses who are certified can provide proof of completing an application process to be officially recognized as a certified minority or women-owned business. If you are registered as an MWBE, you should provide your valid certificate or other evidence in response to this RFP. In this section, we will be discussing how to complete your efforts and quarterly reporting. In order for you to report your efforts, the Department of Housing provides a tool. This tool helps you document and identify how often you are seeking interactions with Section 3 businesses and MWBE businesses. The quarterly reporting form allows for you to share and report your data with the Department of Housing. This allows the agency to fulfill oversight responsibilities and monitor the progress throughout the year. The Department of Housing's quarterly reporting form allows for the user to capture multiple compliance areas all in one Excel form. Section 3 data is collected. MWBE data is collected as well. FHEO information is also documented within the report. And finally, for those who have construction projects, there is a report for Davis-Bacon Unfound Workers Efforts Reporting. Awarded contractors will be responsible for reporting 4 times a year, on April 5th, July 5th, October 5th, and January 5th. This ensures that you are meeting benchmarks and documenting your efforts. The quarterly reporting template is also available on the Department of Housing website. Let's briefly discuss FHEO. Your RFP package will also contain a model contract which outlines fair housing and equal opportunity areas of compliance. Contractors are responsible for ensuring compliance with federal civil rights and fair housing through their contractors, subcontractors, and so forth, ensuring that all necessary efforts are being made. The Fair Housing Act and Sections 109 and 504 prohibit discrimination against the following protected classes of people: race, color, national origin, religion, sex, age, familial status, disability, gender identity, and sexual orientation. The Fair Housing Act is part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. There are many executive orders, laws, and statutes that govern the non-discrimination of protected classes to ensure equal opportunity for individuals in accessing federally funded programs. Equal opportunity is afforded to protected classes through a number of these federal laws and executive orders. The Department of Housing has published policy documents attending FHEO as well as Language Access Plan. These policies must be implemented by contractors and subrecipients. They are publicly available online in both English and Spanish. You are encouraged to click on the links and access the resources available. As a recipient of HUD financial assistance, the Department of Housing must ensure that all programs affirmatively further access to fair housing and that the programs provide equal opportunity for participation and employment. Reasonable accommodations are changes made to policies, practices, services, and structures or modifications to afford equal opportunity to individuals with disabilities. The costs associated with providing reasonable accommodations and modifications are to be incurred by programs receiving federal funding. HUD contemplates these additional costs as necessary to ensure that the programs and activities it funds do not discriminate against people with disabilities. The slide contains a link for you to access the reasonable accommodation page on the Department of Housing website. Limited English proficiency refers to a person's limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English. Due to Puerto Rico's high Spanish-speaking population, all entities and contractors using the CDBG-DR funding must seek to ensure that both a person's limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English or Spanish will not place them at a disadvantage in the participation of programs.
In this section, we will now talk about the Davis-Bacon Act and the related acts. The Department of Housing has published the Davis-Bacon Policy Guide and made it available in English and in Spanish. The Department of Housing, its subrecipients, and their contractors must implement and comply with this policy when it's applicable. Most construction projects funded with CDBG-DR and CDBG-MID funds must comply with Davis-Bacon and related acts requirements to ensure that laborers and mechanics are paid prevailing wages. This includes overtime for the work performed on these federally funded projects. Contractors awarded contracts with these federal funds are responsible for understanding and complying with Davis-Bacon and related act requirements. The Department of Housing and its subrecipients are responsible for oversight. This includes reviewing payroll and other records related to the work performed using these federal funds for construction projects and ensure compliance with the requirements. In this presentation, we will discuss the applicability of these federal labor standards: Housing and Community Development Act, 29 CFR 5, Davis-Bacon Act, Fair Labor Standards Act, Contract Work Hours and Safety Standards Act, and the Copeland Anti-Kickback Act. The Davis-Bacon Act requires payment of prevailing wages as determined by the Department of Labor. It provides a fair opportunity to compete in building programs funded by the federal government. It prevents contractors from bidding below an area's prevailing wages. This law and requirement generally applies to federally funded or assisted programs that are valued at more than $2,000. Contracts for the following types of work on public buildings or public works include construction, alteration and repair, and even painting and decorating. The Contract Work Hours and Safety Standards Act, known as QASA, states that workers should not work more than 40 hours a week unless they are being compensated overtime, and that projects must comply with certain safety standards. The Copeland Anti-Kickback Act requires that there be payment of wages at least once a week, and it only speaks to permissible payroll deductions being allowed. The Fair Labor Standards Act sets the federal minimum wages and additional overtime requirements. In this slide, we discuss who from a construction project funded with CDBG-DR and CDBG-MID is responsible for implementing Davis-Bacon and the related acts. The implementation begins with the project team, who will be responsible for reviewing payrolls and preparing invoice packages. Procurement teams are also responsible for incorporating the correct compliance documents and wage rates within the procurement packages. Legal teams are responsible for incorporating correct compliance documents and wage rates in contracts before they are executed. The compliance team for each respective entity will be responsible for guiding the compliance activities that happen. Contractors and subcontractors working on the projects that are funded with CDBG-DR and CDBG-MID are directly responsible for implementing the day-to-day compliance with the Davis-Bacon Act and the related acts. The following slide discusses the major phases that are found within a construction project. There are activities that happen during procurement, during the pre-bid meeting, during a pre-construction meeting, during a contract signing, during on-site interviews, collecting and reviewing certified payrolls, notifying prime contractors, and when the project finishes, producing the project closeout letter, and finally, the ongoing reporting and record keeping. This slide shows the entire life cycle of a construction project from a DBRA compliance perspective, written out step by step. The first 5 steps address the procurement, pre-construction, and initial construction kickoff phases. As we continue reviewing the following steps, we cover the construction implementation phases of payroll review, contractor corrections and notifications, and finally the project closeout letter, record retention, and biannual reporting. Additional resources. For some construction projects, even when the Davis-Bacon Act doesn't apply, you may still have to comply with other regulations such as QASA and FLSA. In those cases, you will still have to maintain record-keeping and oversight responsibilities. DOL Wage and Hour Division can also directly monitor and oversee your activity. The HUD 4010 form includes various clauses and important language for prime contractors and any subcontractors working on a federally funded project. Contractors must include this form with all subcontracting tiers to ensure compliance with Davis-Bacon and the related acts. DOL makes available the posters that must be included on a project site. The link to access these posters is included in the slide. They are available in multiple languages, including English and Spanish. Contractor penalties and consequences for non-compliance. The Department of Housing discusses penalties and consequences as part of its policy guide. These such actions may include having contract payments withheld in sufficient amounts to satisfy unpaid wages and liquidated damages that result from violations. You could also be subject to debarment from future contracts for up to 3 years, and other potential consequences. We encourage you to visit our website and find additional resources such as the Frequently Asked Questions, the Contractor's Implementation Guide, and many other additional trainings.
Let's briefly discuss some common frequently asked questions. Can a business be both Section 3 and MWBE? The answer is yes. A business or a contractor can be both because these compliance areas are actually separate. Section 3 identifies the level of incomes to determine the status. MWBE uses race and gender information to qualify a business. If I am not planning on subcontracting, do I still need to complete documents? The answer is yes. You should still submit your MWBE utilization plan, the documentation of efforts template, and your quarterly reports. If Section 3 doesn't apply to my contract, do I still have to complete the quarterly report? The answer is yes. You will have to complete the MWBE portion of the report and the portion of the report that attends to FHEO. If I'm either an MBE or WBE, do I fulfill the total goals? You may have safe harbor for one of the goals for MWBE participation of 10%, but you will still have an additional 10% goal to show good faith efforts for any subcontracting or purchasing you perform with the CDBG-DR and CDBG MIT funding. What happens if I don't fulfill the goals before the end of my contract? All awarded contractors should perform and document their efforts. The Department of Housing has developed templates discussed in this presentation that help you complete the exercise. You can submit a waiver before the end of your contract for approval. This waiver request should be submitted with the efforts and justification as appropriate. Thank you for attending today's training. We hope you found the material helpful. Please remember to direct all your questions through the established protocols for this procurement. Thank you to the procurement team for allowing us to present this material. I will stop sharing the presentation so you can continue with the session.
Please remember that potential proposers are required to complete Exhibit J, the non-disclosure agreement, and submit a letter of intent stating their intention to participate in this RFP, providing their legal and organizational structure and profile prior to submitting proposals. These documents will be submitted via email to CDBG-DR-procurement@vivienda.pr.gov prior to submitting proposals. After the receipt and evaluation of the Exhibit J and the letter of intent, PRDOH will send Attachment 6, which is Supplementary Information B. If the documents lack information or are incomplete, you will receive notification from the PRDOH requesting the complete information. Attachment 6 provides information to support proposal preparation for the project. This information is only being provided to all potential proposers who sign and return the non-disclosure agreement. Nonetheless, proposers are responsible for gathering all data as required to prepare a final design for the project's implementation. The submittal of the non-disclosure agreement and letter of intent do not have a due date. However, be mindful of the proposal due date and that your proposal, in order to be complete, needs the information in Attachment 6. Thank you for participating in this meeting. The link for the recording of this meeting, the answer to questions and presentations given today will be published in the addendum with the responses to questions and requests for clarifications at the date specified in the RFP schedule. Have a great day.